That was a few pictures of kind of what we did, and there's no way to capture everything that happened. But we got 11 team members, and you're going to hear from them today. So I'm just going to let them talk, and I'm going to get off the stage. And so Doyle's going to go first.
I got to keep it to 5 minutes, he said. Well, good morning. It's a pleasure to come and tell you some of the things that happened. I probably could talk for an hour and a half, but 5 minutes is what I was told. So, one of the things we did, we called a hat ministry. Every village we went to, as you expect, the men and some of the older teens always kind of stood off to the side. You know, the ladies would come in with the kids, but if we were in a building, the men would be looking in the windows and looking in the doors. And as we would exit, they would tend to group off, but they kind of a standoff kind of thing like men would normally do. So one of the things we did in each village called a hat ministry. We would grab enough new hats for each of the men and approach the group and ask them if we could talk to them for a while. Extremely attentive. On the inside of the hat, and I know y'all can't see this, but I'll just quickly describe it. And this is an example of when you go to these places and you can't speak the language, there are many ways to share the gospel without even having a Bible. And all this says is that Jesus came down, he died on a cross, he rose from the dead, he went back to heaven, and he's going to come back to get us again. Just a quick way, this was on the inside of each of the hats. And what we would do is Keith would approach them and ask them if we could talk for a while, and then one of us would share a testimony with them. And the interesting thing was they were very attentive. I mean, when you watched them as a group, they were glued to what you were saying. And the beauty of that kind of thing is if you think of this, you know, how many times do the pastors tell us up here we're supposed to go out and share the gospel? How many chances do you get to get a group of 6 or 8 or 10 people intently listening to what you say? That's what happens when you go to these countries, okay? They're very interested, they're hungry, they're looking for hope, and that's what they get when we go down there. So it's an opportunity that, you know, I would say you don't get in Franklin County very often, okay? So that's one of the great things. Another one we did, you saw a little bit of it, Don Gillette down there builds houses every so often in a local village, and basically for people that have helped him with the ministry. So he told us one morning we were going to go dig some footers. Okay, big deal. Well, there ain't no backhoe, I can tell you that. So we dug them, pick and shovel, okay, and just basically joined with the local people that were also involved. And of course, there was somebody there to show us how deep to make them and everything. It was actually engineered. And so we spent one morning doing that and just basically interfacing with the locals and having a good time and a lot of high fives. And the next morning he said, we're going to go back and we're going to pour cement. Well, that had us curious for a little while. Turns out they did have a cement mixer. However, the water, you may have seen in the show, you carry the water by hand and you carry the sand by hand. The water truck was out on the road and the sand pile was away from the cement mixer. And when I started shoveling sand into the buckets. That was a pretty good deal. Well, I set the shovel down for a minute, probably to get a drink of water, and I came back and my shovel was gone. The young boys had kind of moved in. Well, I found out why, because prior to that, I was filling the buckets and they were carrying it to the cement mixer. Well, when I picked one of those things up, I said, okay, I've been snookered, right? Now I got to carry this thing to the cement mixer. It was heavy, okay? So they just kind of pitched in, and actually it takes $3,200 to build one of these houses. And actually, they're very substantial houses. They use very solid brick. Of course, we don't get involved in that because you have to know what you're doing. And the roofs are metal. They're held up by a metal structure. So it's really quite impressive what they do. They get a concrete floor. And this house happened to be for a lady who was living in a cardboard box at the time. So I'll give it to the next person. Hope I stayed in 5 minutes.
not going to preach. Just had a little bit I wanted to share with you. Well, I need to turn my Bible up, right? I want to talk to you about the food ministry. If you'll notice, there's a portrait at the top, at the front of the church, and that is a picture of the line where we had people coming in to get their food. And a group before us, the lady took the picture, and then she went home and painted it. So they had these prints down there that we could buy. So as you saw in the video, we were cooking chicken stew in a big cast iron bowl over an open flame. The stew had chicken, cabbage, onions, rice, carrots, green peppers, and garlic, water, mustard, and ketchup. And in the mornings, while some of the group were at the radio station doing their testimonies, the rest of us were back at the compound cutting up the vegetables and getting it ready for the stew. We did this in the evening times when we went back to different villages, and it was very well received. We all started helping with the cooking and stirring and passing out the food and that kind of thing. And I just wanted to show y'all a couple of things that the villagers brought to us to put food in. One of them, we all have this in our house. Sand bucket. And this one impressed me the most. It's a Frisbee. And not an hour ago, they were playing with this Frisbee in a field, a cow pasture. And this young boy came up, turned the Frisbee upside down, and we put food in it. Their utensils were 3 fingers. They would dig into the bowl and eat the rice. So we are very blessed in this country to have what we have. We also gave out food packets of rice that they could have for the rest of the week. We threw out candy off of our truck as we were going in and out of the villages. I was able to give my testimony to a lady named Haiti after I painted her fingernails. And at the end of the day, we would all meet back at the compound and have what we call God moments. And that's where we would share something that especially touched us during the day. So I want to share a God moment with you all about this trip that has touched me. I also want to thank God and you for supporting us and helping us to go on that trip. It's one I've prayed about for quite a few months. This comes from Hebrews 13, 1 and 2. Keep on loving each other as brothers and sisters. Don't forget to show hospitality to strangers, for some who have done this have entertained angels without realizing it. Thank y'all.
I would encourage anyone that would have an opportunity to go on this trip. They should go. It's very safe there. It's real organized. Everyone can have something to do and work as a group and get a blessing out of it. One moment that stands out for me, as Doyle said, that a lot of the ministry for the older men were outside the huts where we would do our skit. And one time we was out, and I think it was 5 men. It was one pretty good-sized guy. And, guessing, I don't know how old he was. I'd say he was 50 years old. But then when we was back under the shelter doing the skit, all the kids, it was probably 50, 60 kids out enjoying this part that we did. And I looked out, I was part of that skit that time. And this 50-year-old man was out there right with them kids, waving his hands and just enjoying with a blessing with what we was doing. And that was a real God moment for me.
That was short. For you that don't know me, I'm Evelyn Vest, and of course my husband Michael, and we were so blessed to go on this trip together. I've seen a lot of poverty on mission trips and on disaster relief, but I've never seen poverty like this before that was so widespread. And it made me very sad when I came back, because you can't fix this country. No matter how many times you go, you can't fix it. Then I finally realized that it's not my job to fix it. It's my job to go and bring a little joy and spread the gospel, sow some seeds to these people. And I think we did that. If you noticed, we were sitting in front of a speaker at a table, and that's when we shared our testimony. And I think that was a real important thing to do, because I think people think that we live these perfect lives in America, and we are very blessed to be from America. But when we gave our stories, I don't know how many people heard them, but then they realized that we are broken also, and that they can have hope, excuse me, in Jesus Christ. And I think that we planted a lot of seeds, gave a lot of joy, and maybe brought hope to these people.
So I had the privilege of going down to Nicaragua with everybody, and it was my first time out of the country without a parent. It was absolutely amazing. The main thing that I did down there was I pretty much played soccer all day, every day with all the kids and everybody. It was a lot of fun. Like, sometimes we do teams, sometimes we just pass a ball, sometimes we just played. It was a lot of fun. And at the end of the game, or after we were done passing the ball or something, some of the balls had the symbols that Doyle showed on the little card, and we talked to them about it. We would give them the hats, and we'd pray with them, and it was absolutely amazing. And then while we were down there, and they showed it in the video, there was this woman named Victoria down there. Her leg was amputated, and she is currently waiting on a prosthetic. And while we were down there, we got to lay hands on her, and you could feel the Holy Spirit, and it was just absolutely amazing to see how much she believed and how much faith she had in God. It was just amazing overall.
Good morning. My name is Jordan, and I was so blessed to be able to go to Nicaragua. It strengthened my faith in so many different ways, and it gave me a new and fresh perspective on God and the world and love. And it was such a humbling experience to just go down to Nicaragua, to just be with these people and to just bring them joy. And it really just made my heart so full, and also to be so vulnerable with the Lord and also with the people from our church was really great. Don and Pam Gillette, who run Because We Care Ministries, really inspired me. They are such great examples of obedient servants, and I was so honored to just be with them and just learn from them. And every morning we started our day off with devotions, and then we also ended our day off with devotions. And so it was just a really great environment, especially for me going off to college, to just really absorb and just know that, like, that's what I want my life to look like. So every day we went to a radio station where 5 people shared their testimonies, and that was really awesome to hear everyone's stories about how God has worked in their lives. And also it was so powerful to share my story, and just it was just really awesome. There was a lot of power in that for me, and I loved hearing everyone's stories as well. So we got around Nicaragua in these trucks that had bright orange tents over the beds of them. And so we sat in the benches of the trucks, and we would throw out candy going down the roads. And like, people would literally run from the roads. Like, they would risk their lives to get candy. Like, it was, that's like how much joy like those trucks brought everyone. And we were basically like Santa Claus, but I mean, Jesus is better, so. But so, like, for example, when we would pull up into the schools, like, all we heard were screaming kids because they were so excited for us, because we were just bringing, we just wanted to be with them and play with them and love on them. And they don't get that chance at home, so it was really honoring to do that. So in the schools, we would bring bubbles and soccer balls and nail polish, and we would play music, and of course the jump ropes that we made, and the school supplies, and we would sing songs like This Little Light of Mine. And it was we gave them flashlights, and it, like, their eyes were so bright when they got the flashlights and when we were singing, and it was really great to just see like how much joy we brought them. And so also in the villages, we also did a lot of one-on-one interaction. And so we did like the whiteboard gospel, like in the video you saw us with whiteboards. We would hand them out, and we would draw like chickens and houses and trees. And then we would also like share the gospel with them with arrows, just to get them involved. And also in the villages, we did a skit. It was John chapter 21. And it was basically about the disciples were fishing, and they didn't catch any fish because Jesus didn't come with them. So we did a craft with them, and this is the fish that we did. They got to do stickers, and so I made a connection with a little boy. His name was Eddie Alejandro, and he was like 10 years old, but he gave me his fish, and he wrote his name on it, and it meant a lot to me. But the people there were just so amazing and just so welcoming. And when we were in the churches, they were just, the people of the churches really just appreciated us being there in their community. And it was really great. And in Nicaragua, the Holy Spirit was there. And I'm so thankful that I got to go.
Hi, we're Nick Dyson and Allie Dyson. Just a little background on why we went. We sat back probably 3 years ago, and we're wondering, big grandest plans for our 10-year anniversary. And Allie's always been pushing to go help out and to volunteer, and she brought this idea up. Let's go on a mission trip for our 10-year anniversary. So that's kind of how we went into Nicaragua. But I did want to share one story with you, and then I'll pass it over. Allie's got a lot to say. About 12 minutes, Keith. But kind of piggybacking off of some of the testimonies and stories that you heard earlier, but the men in Nicaragua, like Doyle was saying, they're on the outside. They're behind bars, kind of peeking into these churches. But one particular story, when I was sharing my testimony, and there was about a group of 10 to 12 grown men, fathers, young adults, that were listening in and leaning in. And I kind of stopped in my tracks when I looked up, and there's this little boy sitting in a tree. And I lost my words. I lost my heart, really. It just stopped. And I'm like, that's Zacchaeus. I'm like, wow. And I got goosebumps all over my body. And I was like, is this what the disciples felt? You know, when they were going around after Jesus, sharing the story of how he touched their lives. So it was just a powerful moment, and I'll pass it over to Allie.
I'll try not to cry. I'm well known for that. But I'll just give you a few points that I thought really stuck out to me. We prayed for this mission trip for 6 years, to be exact. And these just happened to be the people. This happened to be the church. We've moved all over. And we're just very thankful that we're connected now forever. One of the things we did after we were in the villages is all the things that you guys donated, we were able to, they got in a huge line, like a Black Friday line, and we would pass out all of the things. And it didn't matter if you were a boy or a girl, we would pass you whatever it was. And they were happy as could be to get, you know, if they were a little girl, a 5-year-old girl, she would get a size 13 men's sandal. Like, it did not matter. They were just happy to get something. And just seeing that joy over the simplest things, that we could just go to Walmart and get 10 pairs of sandals and it would be nothing for us. But for them, it means everything. It means they don't have to walk barefoot on these hard grounds, or they get to gift those sandals to their dad. And that was a huge thing. We got to see brothers and sisters, you know, pass out whatever they got, or maybe the daughter gave it to her mom. Family was really huge there, and you got to see that. They didn't take each other for granted. They were there for each other. They looked out for each other. And then another thing that I think was my biggest moment, when we were in the God moments, and you guys probably, Don Gillette has spoken here. He's very tough exterior. And we watched him break down when he was explaining why he started this. It started out as a mission trip, and then it turned into more when they were down there, and he would think about, they would come back here. It's when they weren't living there most of the year. And he would be here, and he would be up at night, in the middle of the night, thinking of the little kids just crying in bed at night, just praying and hoping that he would come the next day. And I think that really touched me, because we are the answer to their prayer. They can't just go and get a job. They can't just go and do these things that you would think, oh, they need to go help themselves. We are the answer to their prayer. God wants to work in us. God will work in a different way, but we were who he wanted us to work through. And so I'm just very blessed. We are very blessed that we were to be able to be that answer to their prayer. Another thing with the painting of the women's fingernails, that was a huge thing. It was you were able to connect with women. We went in and we started painting little girls' hands, which obviously they love that. But when you can go up to a grown woman and say, "Can I paint your nails?" At first, we were all very nervous, I think, to do that part, because we didn't want them to. We didn't want them to think that, hey, we're better than you. Come, let's paint your nails and make you, a certain way. But they loved it. They don't get to go to a spa on Mother's Day. They don't get to do these things that we're so blessed to be able to do. And so we were able to just sit eye to eye with them and have some kind of little conversation, and they just were able to feel love and to feel special. And it was an amazing part of our trip. And it was just kind of like Jesus when he was able to wash their feet. Like, we were able to do that. We were able to be that for that little bit of time to make them feel loved. And I think that this trip just lit a fire in all of us that is burning brighter than it was. And we're able to then share it in everything else we do, in our work, in our homeschooling, in our community. And I just wanted to share a ripple effect in our house. Our kids obviously saw us and don't hear us stop talking about it to anybody who will listen. But Reed, our daughter, she has already made her Christmas list and has asked, the only thing on there was to go to Nicaragua. And so there are ripple effects that will forever change our lives. And one day I had a conversation with Maddox about what he wants in a wife. And his qualification was somebody that would go on missions trips with him. And so these are things they're watching. These are things our community, our church is watching. And we can't just go and keep that to ourselves. We have to tell anybody who will listen. And then the last thing I wanted to share was not only was it amazing to be able to go to Nicaragua and to meet the people there, but to be able to have a relationship with our church. I mean, we were there for a week. There's very little technology. And so you're just with the same 11, 12 people every day. And we got to grow together. We got to connect together. These are people that every time I see them, they make me smile so bright. I just want to hang out with them all the time. And sharing our testimonies, we really got to know each other. That's a huge part of being a Christian. If we share our testimonies, people see that we're real people, that we have problems, that we may look all together on the outside, but we're not on the inside. And so we got to share that together. And we were able to bond in that way, and we'll forever be bonded. So it was an amazing opportunity for this church. So if you ever do get this opportunity, please run at it. Be the first to sign up. And so Isaac is one that shared his testimony. I think it touched all of us in an amazing way. So here you go.
I'm here. So one of the big things that touched me was just how Don gave into God's will, and it showed in the people around him, because with where we were there, we got lucky. We actually hit his 80th birthday. This was an 70th. Oh, okay. Wow, 70th. I'm thinking about you. Sorry. So we hit his 70th birthday, right? And these people love him so much. They brought a marching band to his door to wake him up. This is how much they love this man. So he just shows a great love for these people. And I think we've kind of touched on that. And that just inspired me to want to seek after this. And another thing that really stuck out to me, so we were not alone down there as a church. We actually had another church. This was Mount Olive. They're in Wise, Virginia, and they were great. This was an amazing feeling because we came together as a church family. This wasn't just 11 people. I mean, I know you said that, but it was amazing because this was a family. This wasn't just 11 random people, and this other church was our family. And I think that that's a great thing that we need to think about, is that we are not just one church here. We are a body. We are together as a church, working together for the same goals as that Christ has set in for us. So I would like to end here with 1 Corinthians chapter 12 through 14. There is one body, but has many parts, but all its many parts make up one body. It is the same with Christ. We are all baptized by one Spirit, and we are formed into one body. It does not matter where whether we were Jews or Gentiles, slaves or free people. We are all given to the same Spirit to drink. So the body is not made up of just one part, but many. And I just want us to think about that as we go into this world, is that we shouldn't look at other churches and think we're better. We shouldn't look at other churches and think they're better than us. We are all working towards the same goal. Thank you.
Well, I'm Isaac Bowman. It's actually a privilege and an honor to stand before you here. It's by God's grace that I'm able to do so. I don't really have any notes, and so I'm going to be sharing straight from the heart. And it would be good, I think, if we as a people learn to do that more often. And actually, get to know who each one of us are as individuals. It makes a lasting impact. That's the only thing that we can do that'll make a difference when we no longer have breath. You know, I have two brothers that went on before me, one older and one younger. So what am I doing with my life that's going to make a difference? You know, what are we doing? Right? You know, this is supposed to be sharing about going to Nicaragua. I'll get to that. Okay. Donald and Pam, the ones that founded Because We Care Ministry, their mission, their statement is rolling back the darkness. And the Bible says that if you abide in Him, there is no darkness. He is light. He is love. He is life. Right? So their mission is to roll back darkness, whether it be in Nicaragua, whether it be those of us that go thinking we're going to be helping somebody else out. In turn, it makes an impact that is hard to describe on each one of us lives. You know, this is my second time going, and it was an honor and a privilege to go with 11 of our members here at Hales Ford. Again, I cannot describe the impacts that it makes. You know, we build relationships, we build bonds. Donald and Pam started 19 years ago. I think back, that's when I started my career in the workforce. What lasting impact have I done with my career versus what they're doing? So the things that we take back from mission trips or whatever it is, again, I'm going to say it's hard to put your hands on it. So being able to share a testimony, being able to share a portion of our life story. You know, Jesus, He taught in stories all the time, right? That's how He taught mostly. So why are we not sharing our story? You know, what is the screw that is holding our tongue? You know, I got to share my testimony. It's never really been in a shareable format. Don't know that it is now. And there will be another point in time that we'll go there, here. But what's the screw that's holding our tongue? You know, so I got to share a portion of it for the first time on the radio. He owns a radio ministry down there. And so it reaches somewhere between 2 to 4 million people. It goes across about 4 different countries. You know, it's and so to be able to do things like that and increase your faith, increase your strength, loosen your tongue to be able to go share your story. That is amazing. Also got to go with Donald and Pam to Israel. Between the 2 mission trips, that was my first time. And I'm going to touch on the cry of Christ for just a second. That's very impactful. That's been a lifesaver for me over the past 3 or 4 years, especially the last 2. And as I share my testimony, when that time and opportunity presents itself, you'll see. But the cry of Christ, you know, I was Peter this past year. And I was Judas the previous 2 years. And, you know, Judas betrayed Jesus, right? How often do we betray Jesus, you know? But that allowed the opportunity when I went to Israel to come back with a piece of silver, a half of a shekel that would have been identical and dated in the time Jesus was on this earth. And that's a rare artifact, right? That was an opportunity to be, but it spoke to me. That was something I brought back from Israel. That was a piece of the money that was paid to Judas when he betrayed Jesus, right? So Donald and Pam do more than just the missions in Nicaragua. They also go to Israel. I plan to go again in March. And I would like to sponsor Keith to go with me, or at least take a portion in sponsoring him if the Lord leads for that to be an opportunity for him, and the support of the church would be very beneficial. I didn't get permission to say anything about that. Hopefully I don't get in trouble over that. But anyway, we're going again in March and looking very forward to that. So the radio ministry reaches several million, and I just can't share enough of the good that comes from those type of experiences. So do we have to go to Nicaragua for that kind of experience? No, not necessarily. But being a bit business-minded, and economics is a big deal, Nicaragua is one of the places that a dollar goes at a multiple of 33. So, for those of you that are good at math, financially speaking, can be multiplied. You know, we planted, but God watereth, and he giveth the increase. I'm going to wrap up by saying and sharing a verse, Hebrews 10, 24 through 25, and it says, "And let us consider how we may spur one another toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." Thank you, guys, and look forward to the next time.
All right, well, thank you. You've heard from our team. I'm just going to let them, they have shared pretty much everything there is to share there. Over, I would say, probably about 2,000 people heard the gospel in that week from the villages we did, not all at the same time, but between the two villages each day, about 2,000 people heard the gospel in a clear way, and so the Lord was moving in a mighty way. And so we have a lot to be proud of as a church, as sending a team like this. We'll be going again next year. And so just if you'll be praying about it, and if the Lord's leading you to go, we'd love to have you be a part of that team next time. So